Hi everyone. So, I went to Disneyland, California for 4 days and I finally got to experience Galaxy's Edge. It was a bit of a disappointing experience and sadly I am going to get to make the video I never thought I'd actually make, a negative Galaxy's Edge video. But hear me out, I do have a slightly different take on Galaxy's Edge which goes a bit beyond classic movies good, new Disney movies bad, which is the usual narrative that you get fed. Before we get into it, if you want more videos about making life a story worth telling via storytelling and making small great changes in your life, then don't hesitate to press the subscribe button and click that bell icon. In many ways my life can be defined by my relationship with Star Wars. Some of my earliest memories are of being told about Star Wars by a friend in the street. And let's just say his attempts to explain the Death Star run weren't really that great. But what can you expect of a 6-year-old? The prospect of Star Wars intersecting with theme parks, especially after experiencing the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and Pandora World of Avatar, both of which are absolutely amazing. I mean, that was nothing short of some sort of dream made life. I did have some concerns before I rocked up to Galaxy's Edge in California, because there was positive videos of people wandering through the land with exuberant enthusiasm, having that tsunami of emotions that I wanted to experience. The trouble was, it just wasn't popping through the lens. I was happily prepared to put this to one side in favour of being there, but it did niggle me a bit because the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and Pandora the World of Avatar didn't have that problem. They literally popped through the lens and made you go, that looks amazing. And it helped that those places happened to be even better when I went there. And it's important to note that I went to both Pandora and the Wizarding World of Harry Potter between 2016 and 2019. So it's not as if those are old experiences tinged by nostalgia. I walked into Galaxy's Edge and sadly it was as soulless in the land as it was viewing it through the camera lens. I mean, I tried. I really did try. I reached deep into my soul to try and find that ember of wonder from the years of enjoying the films and creating my own stories across the table with dice. But I just couldn't find it. As I'm prone to do once I realised it wasn't going to pop and I wasn't going to be a person who could have one of those exuberant and amazing experiences, I started to contemplate why. Many people come to the conclusion that it's because it's totally an original place and isn't linked to the original trilogy. I do get that. It's one valid argument, and if Disney had taken that approach of duplicating classic trilogy locations across a number of zones, I think it would have removed a lot of the problems. But while that might be a solution, I don't think it actually is the problem. I think the problem is more subtle than that, and jumping to the holy grail of the original trilogy just provides a shortcut to a possible solution. I don't think the problem is necessarily because Disney chose an original location, or because they kept things within the Disney film's time period. It is for some, and I fully understand that, but I actually like The Last Jedi, and I spent years creating my own Star Wars stories in the licensed tabletop role-playing game, so it's not really a problem that it's all an original place. To argue why this is the case, I think you can compare Galaxy's Edge with 3 other highly themed experiences. The aforementioned Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Pandora World of Avatar, and what was, but no longer exists, the Star Trek experience in Las Vegas. In comparing Galaxy's Edge with these 3 highly themed areas, we're essentially asking what was Galaxy's Edge trying to achieve. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter takes the approach of putting you in the books or the films. It does this amazingly well. Ironically, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is also the closest comparison to Galaxy's Edge in terms of approaching things from a thematically dense environment that mixes shopping, rides, and highly Instagrammable locations. Whether such experiences work or not is a very fine line. And I'm sure for some people neither works, or that the Wizarding World works and Galaxy's Edge doesn't, or vice versa. But for me the Wizarding World clearly does, and Galaxy's Edge does not. And believe me, I am substantially more a Star Wars fan than I am a Harry Potter fan. The Wizarding World works because it is the locations from the property people love. Galaxy's Edge chose a foreign one that can't help but come across like a generic space opera. The Millennium Falcon aside, which of course, that does look pretty amazing. Strangely, slightly out of scale and small, but not in a way that damages it. That does look pretty great, but largely for a photo, right? And then you're done. It's physically distant from the places the audience has known love. The Wizarding World is not. The Wizarding World is full of all the wonderful visual and oral cues from the films. Galaxy's Edge is not. It sort of is, in that you get the odd familiar droid sound or ships flying overhead, but it manages to play into the generic feel of the experience rather than richly using the music. As remember, Star Wars music does not exist on Batuu, so they can't play it. They even do the thing where they insert alien jungle sounds, but every time I heard those it just reminded me of Pandora. It didn't remind me of Star Wars specifically. You can wear costumes in the Wizarding World, and seeing people in their robes really helps with the environment. Galaxy's Edge, you can sort of wear costumes while trying to not look like you're wearing a costume. It's a bit like sneaking past the Imperial fleet to get to Endor. Fly casual, but not too casual. Wear a costume, but not too much of a costume. People did try, and every time you saw one, it added a small spark to an otherwise lifeless location. I get that Disney doesn't want guests taking over the show, as they call it. You know, the theme park and the cast members, that's why they call them cast members, are supposedly putting on a permanent show. But that hard and fast rule is sort of predicated on the fact that Disney themselves are giving us a said show. So maybe the approach wasn't to make you feel like you were in the actual films. Possible, since they chose a place that isn't in the films. In many ways, this is the approach of Pandora World of Avatar. As while the Pandora obviously is one from the films, it has the unfortunate challenge of being a cinematic world most people weren't that asked about. Yet Pandora is a phenomenal success, and it made people care. It made people care because it went beyond feeling like you were in the film, the bit most visitors don't actually care about. Instead you feel like you're in some just a goddamned alien world, experiencing the awesomeness of its fantastical environment. It is almost irrelevant that Pandora is based on a movie. Galaxy's Edge could have taken this approach. Possibly that was what they were hoping, that Batuu would be so amazing that the fact it doesn't have the inbuilt visual cues of a location you're familiar with and care about wouldn't matter. The trouble is, it doesn't work. The majority of Batuu feels like a generic space opera location at best, and most of it gives you the visual cues of shopping mall, or in some ways the animal kingdom. It's really weird. It doesn't necessarily feel like a sweeping, epic Star Wars location, or at least not consistently or well enough. When you walk into a Star Wars land, things should feel widescreen, epic, and you should be swept up by the sounds, music and emotions of it all. Oddly, Pandora, which could be argued is not that much bigger than an e-ticket attraction facade, does this better than the rather larger Galaxy's Edge. So what was it trying to do if it failed at either of these? The feeling I came away with from Galaxy's Edge was that I was walking around an awesome backdrop in which exciting and epic things were supposed to happen, but they forgot to put any of the happening in it. The one single thing I took away from Galaxy's Edge was that it would be an awesome set for a live role-playing scenario. And that's when it hit home. I thought that because the live role-playing scenario would put the happening into the set. It would add the drama, the experience, and something to see. It would make the environment come alive. Because that's what the experience was supposed to be, right? You were told that every cast member would be an interaction. Just buying something would involve interacting with an alien shopkeeper as if you were on a Star Wars world. When in truth all the cast members are human and largely interact with you via stock phrases. And it's pretty transparent and actually detracts rather than enhances the experience. Hell, the Jawas in Docking Bay gave more of the promised experience of Galaxy's Edge than Galaxy's Edge. It's an illusion of immersion and not a particularly convincing one. We were told that you'd be drawn into the conflict in Galaxy's Edge because you'd be forced to make choices on the attractions, and your magic band would record these for prosperity, and the various characters, the good, the bad and the morally grey, would react to you based on that recorded choice. Needless to say, none of that happens. There was supposed to be roaming droids and all sorts of activity. It was supposed to feel busy, happening and chaotic, when in fact it feels empty, but for Chewbacca, Rey, Kylo Ren and some First Order stormtroopers wandering around. There is also a made-up character who I think exists in a book. And to be fair, she wanders around and everyone gives her quizzical looks because they have no idea who she is. It feels like you're roaming through the world of an MMO. But they forgot to put any question marks above people's head to tell you there was any quests. My conclusion in some of the tweets as I tried to process my disappointment, as I really wanted it to succeed, is that they essentially created the backdrop and soundstage for all the epic chaos, interaction and unfolding story to happen, and then didn't actually do anything. Neither did they change their direction, they just left it out. As a result, what you're left with is a soulless soundstage on which nothing actually plays out. The challenge for me isn't that there is no classic film locations or characters. They could have gone on to populate Galaxy's Edge with 100% new characters as far as I'm concerned, and it could have worked if they had made sure things were happening, made it dynamic, always in motion, exciting, ensuring the smells, people and dangers born from the foreign environment, the conflict and the crime hit you in your face. It needed to have the friction of chaos and being lived in. The problem is, it doesn't. The result is boring, banal and devoid of anything exciting. The experiences are either retail experiences or ones you'll do once and never again. Smuggler's Run is a terrible ride. I don't really understand how people defend it. Yes, being in the Millennium Falcon before you actually get on the ride itself is pretty damn cool, but the ride itself is more of a confusing and hectic mission space. And I prefer mission space. It's terribly executed, it's largely pointless for everyone but the pilot, and it's just very confusing. I do believe Rise of the Resistance is going to give Flight of Passage and Radiator Springs Racers a run for being the best ride across the US Disney theme parks. But that is just one ride. It doesn't change the fact that Galaxy's Edge at the moment is an epic failure. I don't mean financially, I can't profess to have the facts to back that up, but personally, as a die-hard Star Wars fan who was expecting to be given a sense of wonder and was willing to be open-minded about what Batuu was about, they screwed it up. I know they screwed it up as reading between the lines of what they promised and seeing the soulless husk of what was actually what we got. There was an example of how these things should be done. The aforementioned Star Trek experience in Las Vegas. The third comparison I was going to make, which you probably thought I'd forgot. What this experience did was put you on the Deep Space Nine promenade, where there was themed shops, a bar and a restaurant. While substantially smaller than Galaxy's Edge, as it was contained within a hotel, this already sounds familiar, right? Not only that, all the staff were Ferengi, Dabo girls, Federation officers, Klingons and whatever else. They all reacted to you entirely in character. And I mean truly in character, not that fake Batuu in character thing that you have going on. Even though it could be argued there was literally nothing to do other than eat, drink and shop, it didn't matter. The place was fantastic. It was fantastic because being there was enough. You got caught up in the atmosphere and the dramas of each of the characters, and just the interactions were really engaging. You could just live there and stay there. And that is what Galaxy's Edge lacks, but I suspect that at one point is what it was supposed to feel like, the Star Trek experience. All this means is Galaxy's Edge fails to make you 100% feel like you're living and breathing Star Wars. It will almost certainly continue to do so, since guests can't even stomach the food names, right? So the theming, it's going to be eroded, bland though it currently is. If you've been to Galaxy's Edge, please don't hesitate to comment. If you have any questions about Galaxy's Edge, don't hesitate to ask them in the comments. Please go to Galaxy's Edge. You never know, you may have a totally different experience than me, and you may well be one of those people who gets to have one of those exuberantly enjoyable, amazing experiences. And if you do, fantastic. Personally, Disney have failed big time. Until next time, you can support me by doing a few simple things. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and let's continue to make small great changes to make life a story worth telling.